Back. So today we're going to be continuing our working through the blue Azar book, Understanding and Using English Grammar. And the chart that we're going to be looking at today is 2-7, present perfect progressive. So let me explain a little bit about what we'll do. First, I'm going to explain how do you make present perfect progressive. Then we're going to talk about the meaning. And to talk about the meaning, it'll be helpful to compare it with present perfect. And so we'll briefly review present perfect, and then we'll talk about the meaning of present perfect progressive. Finally, we'll talk about, well, when should I use present perfect? And when should I use present perfect progressive? When do I use one? When do I use the other? And we'll give you a rule for doing that. Okay, so let's get started. How do I make present perfect progressive? So the way I make present perfect progressive is I use have or has. I use has for he, she, and it, and I use have for everything else. Hope you can see that. There's a glare from the light. Anyway, I use have or has plus been plus verb ing. Okay? So I might say, to make a statement, I'd say, John has been studying. And you see I have or has plus been plus verb ing, studying. Okay, let's do another example. I might say, I have been teaching for 28 years. I have been teaching for 28 years. And notice again, we have or has, plus been, plus verb ing. So have, has, plus been, plus verb ing. Okay? So we haven't talked about what these mean yet, but that's how I make a statement. If I want to make a negative statement, it's very easy in present perfect progressive. All I need to do is I add the word not after have. So I could say, John has been studying, positive statement. If I want to make it negative, I can just put the word not in here, and it becomes John has not been studying. Okay? So making it negative, just add the word not. Or if I want to make this negative, maybe I haven't been teaching for 28 years, maybe I've been teaching for 27 years. So I might say, I have not been teaching for 28 years. So you can also write those in the shorter form, hasn't and haven't, but let's not worry about that too much. So we've talked about how I make a statement. I use have and has plus been plus verb ing. Excuse me. To make negative statement, I just add the word not after have. Okay? Let's talk about how I make a question. Let's see. Let's just use this first one. To make a question using present perfect progressive, I just take the first word of the verb. Here, the first word is have, has. And I move it in front of the subject. And so I would get, has John been studying? Okay. By the way, this is a kind of a useful rule to know. Most of the verb tenses in English will make questions this way. I take the first word of the verb and I move it in front of the subject. There are two exceptions, simple present and simple past. They do it a different way. But all of the other verb tenses in English, we just take the first word of the verb and we move it in front of the subject. Okay. Now, we've talked about how I make present perfect progressive. Let's talk about let's talk about what does present perfect mean. Let me erase this. So you remember we were saying to talk about what present perfect means, it'll be helpful to go back and talk about present perfect. So let's start there. You remember, if you've been watching these videos, and if you haven't, it would probably be good to go back and look at the videos on the meaning of present perfect. We talked about how present perfect has two main meanings. Actually, there are a few more, but these are the two that the Blue Book talks about, and they're the most important for you to know at this time. So I can use present perfect with no length of time, or I can use present perfect with a length of time. And the meaning of present perfect will change depending on whether there's no length of time or a length of time. You'll remember if I use present perfect with no length of time, like if I say, Alice has eaten dinner, that means that this action happened in the past, but the time is not clear. And we usually use this present perfect with no length of time. We usually use this for situations where the action happened recently, or when we're talking about somebody's entire life. This would be probably recently, because she's eaten dinner. If I'm talking about someone's entire life, I might say, Mary, or let's see. Yeah, Mary has, Mary has visited Hawaii. So if I say Mary has visited Hawaii, that can mean just sometime in her entire life. The time is not clear. We don't know exactly when she visited Hawaii, but it happened sometime between the time she is born and now. Okay. So present perfect with no length of time, hold on just one moment. Let's put that up here. So I might say present perfect with no length of time equals, it happened in the past, but the time is not clear. Like I might say, Mary has visited Hawaii. Let's use that again. So this meaning of present perfect does not continue until now. But if I use present perfect with a length of time, the meaning changes, okay? So if I say, if I use present perfect with a length of time, it means that the action started in the past and it continues until now. It's still true. So let me give you an example. I could say, let's see here. Bill, I'm going to use myself, and I'm going to use the same example that we just talked about. I might say, I have taught ESL for 28 years. And so, it means if I use present perfect, have taught, with a length of time, 28 years, this is 2020, so I could also say since 1992, then it means that I started 28 years ago and I've continued to teach ESL until now. So right now I'm teaching ESL to you on a video. I started 28 years ago and I have continued to do that all the way until now. So when I use present perfect with a length of time, it means it started in the past. It continues until now. If I use present perfect with no length of time, then it means it happened in the past, but the time is not clear, and it does not continue until now. Okay, let's go and talk about present perfect progressive. So, let's see here. Present perfect progressive has good news. One of the problems that can be confusing with present perfect is it has more than one meaning. If I use it with no length of time, it means the action is finished in the past. If I use it with a length of time, the meaning is very different. It means that it continues and started in the past, continues until now. Okay? Present perfect progressive is much nicer because it only has one meaning. So, present perfect progressive always means this. It means the action started in the past and has continued until now. Or sometimes it's almost now. It could be maybe very close to now. But let's just say now for right now. So let me give you an example. I might say, I have been teaching ESL for 28 years. Now let's talk about what that means. Let's draw a picture. So we say that it started in the past and it continues until now. So when did it start in the past? It started 28 years ago. So this would be back in 1992. And I could also say I have been teaching ESL since 1992. Now, so it started in the past. That's the first part of the meaning. And it has continued until now, or sometimes almost until now. So I started teaching in 1992, and I have continued until now. Okay? So, present perfect progressive always means the action started in the past, continues till now. Present perfect has different meanings, depending on whether I use a length of time or not. Now, there may be a question forming in your mind. You may be thinking, wait a minute. We said, or you said, Mr. Uchiyama, you said, when I use present perfect with a length of time, it means the action started in the past and continues until now. And you said, I have taught ESL for 28 years. I have taught ESL since 1992. Yes, that's right. But you just said present perfect progressive means the action started in the past and has continued until now. And so I have been teaching ESL for 28 years, or I have been teaching ESL since 1992. And I look at this picture, starts in the past, continues until now. I look at this picture, starts in the past, continues until now. How are these different? That's a really good question. So let's talk about that. So I'm just going to say, here's what you need to know. When I use present perfect progressive with a length of time, it means, erase that please. When I use present perfect progressive, it means exactly the same thing as present perfect with a length of time. That's important, so let me say it again. When I use present perfect progressive, it means the same thing as present perfect with a length of time. Let me find a place to write that on the board because that's something, that's like one of the very main points that I want to make here. When I don't have much room, so I'm going to write present perfect progressive as PPP. It means the same as present perfect, PP, with a length of time. So, these two sentences, I have taught ESL for 28 years. I have been teaching ESL for 28 years. I have taught ESL for 28 years. I've been teaching ESL for 28 years. They mean exactly the same thing. Okay. Now, the next question that comes up is, okay, they mean exactly the same thing. When should I use this? When should I use present perfect with a length of time? And when should I use present perfect progressive? Or maybe even an idea that comes up first is, well, what's the difference between the two? What is the difference? And that's a very good question. So let's talk about that first. First we'll say, what's the difference between these? And then we'll talk about when should I use one and when should I use the other. Okay? Now, the main difference between present perfect, it's hard to do this when I'm looking into the camera. The main difference between present perfect and present perfect progressive is present perfect changes its meaning. When I use present perfect with no length of time, it means something very different from using present perfect with a length of time. If I use it with no length of time, it means it just happened in the past, it's finished. Doesn't continue until now. It happened in the past, but the time is not clear. And I'm usually saying it happened recently, or it happened sometime in my life, between the time I was born and now. If I use it with a length of time, the meaning changes. It means it started in the past and it has continued until now. Present perfect always means the same thing. It always means the action started in the past and has continued until now. Okay? So that's one important difference. Now, so let's talk about that a little bit more. So, if I say, I have been teaching ESL for 28 years, means it started in the past and continues until now. If I say, I have taught ESL for 28 years, means it started in the past, continues until now. But, let's change these sentences. I'm going to get rid of the length of time. Or actually, let me just say, and I just say, I have taught ESL. If I get rid of the length of time, let me erase this, then it becomes present perfect with no length of time, and the meaning changes. If I say I have taught ESL, it means sometime in my life, between the time I was born and now, I taught ESL, but it doesn't continue until now. So it happened in the past, but the time is not clear. So if I take away the length of time on present perfect, then the meaning changes. If I say, let's draw these two together. If I say, I have taught ESL for 28 years, here I have a length of time. And this means it started in the past and it has continued until now. In this sentence, I am still teaching ESL now. But if I take away the length of time and I just say I have taught ESL, then it means it happened in the past, but the time is not clear. So this one doesn't continue until now. So with present perfect, if I use a length of time or take away a length of time, it changes the meaning. The meaning changes when I have a length of time or no length of time. With present perfect progressive always means that it starts in the past and continues until now. So here, if I say I have been teaching ESL for 28 years, it means it started in the past, and continues until now. If I say I have been teaching ESL, it still means that it started in the past and it has continued until now. With present perfect progressive, the meaning doesn't change when I take away the length of time. So, I'm trying to think if I should give you another example or two. Let's do this. Yeah. Okay, so we're erasing this. So, I'm going to write a sentence on the board. John has, let's see here. Worked in the library for 2 years. So John got a job working at the college library. John has worked at the library for 2 years. Let's take a look at this sentence and decide what it means. Here, I have present perfect. John has worked at the library. Has worked. And then I have a length of time for 2 years. So I say, oh, I have present perfect with a length of time. Now, remember, when I use present perfect plus a length of time, that equals this action started in the past and it has continued until now. So present perfect with a length of time means it started in the past, continues until now. So here I have present perfect. I have has or have, plus past participle. And here I have a length of time. Now, please pause and ask yourself. John has worked at the library for 2 years. You can pause the video if you want to think. Here's my question. Does John work at the library now? John has worked at the library for 2 years. Does John work at the library now? Okay. So you remember present perfect with a length of time means it starts in the past, continues until now. Here I have a present perfect verb, has worked, and I have a length of time. So when I have present perfect and a length of time, it means that it starts in the past and it continues until now. So because it continues until now, yes, he works at the library now. How is that? Okay, I hope that's clear. Now, let's take a look. Let's make a change. Okay? I'm going to get rid of the length of time. And I say, John has worked at the library, period. Okay? I'm going to erase this. Now, I still have present perfect, but I don't have a length of time. So I've got present perfect, but no length of time. No length of time there at the end. Okay? So, you might remember present perfect plus no length of time equals it happened in the past, but the time is not clear. So if I use present perfect and no length of time, it means it happened in the past, but it's finished in the time is not clear, and it's finished in the past. It doesn't continue until now. So present perfect with no length of time means it happened in the past, the time is not clear, it doesn't continue until now. So John has worked in the library. I see I have present perfect and no length of time. So this sentence means Well, let me ask you a question. John has worked in the library. If an English speaker says that to you, does John work at the library now? You can pause if you want to think. Does he work at the library now? Okay. Now, I remember, present perfect with no length of time. Present perfect with no length of time means that it happened in the past and it doesn't continue until now. It doesn't continue until now. Notice there's no arrow here. So, this one, present perfect with no length of time, it doesn't continue until now. Let me write that here because that's important. Doesn't continue until now. So, the answer is, the question is just, does John work in the library now? No, he does not. He does not work at the library. Because when I use present perfect with no length of time, it means that it happened in the past, the time is not clear, and it doesn't continue until now. Okay, I hope this is getting clearer. I'm going to give one more example, and then this video is getting a bit long, and we should end. I still need to make a video to explain when should I use present perfect with a length of time, and when should I use present perfect progressive. But I'm going to make another video for that, I think. Okay, so, but let me write this up here. So we'll have sentence A be John has worked at the library. Sentence B, John has worked at the library for 2 years. Okay? So 2 sentences. John has worked at the library. John has worked at the library for 2 years. So I have a couple questions to ask you about these sentences. First question. Pause the video if you want time to think. First question. Do these 2 sentences mean the same thing or different things? Okay. I hope you thought they mean different things, because they do. Okay, let's talk about that. When I use present perfect with no length of time, that means that it happened in the past, but the time is not clear, and it doesn't continue until now. So if I say John has worked at the library, he doesn't work at the library now. Now, John has worked at the library for 2 years. When I use present perfect with a length of time, it means that it started in the past and it has continued until now. So this one, I have present perfect. Let me use a different color here. I have present perfect. And I have a length of time. Oh my, okay. Present perfect and a length, present perfect and a length of time. Present perfect and a length of time. Because I have present perfect and a length of time, the length of time is important, it means that it started in the past and it continues until now. So this sentence, John has worked at the library for 2 years, means yes, John still works at the library. It's continued until now. The other sentence, present perfect with no length of time, John has worked at the library, means that he worked at the library sometime in the past, maybe 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We don't know because the time is not clear, but it's finished in the past. Okay. If this were a class, I'd ask you, do you need some more examples? But unfortunately, it's a video. I hope that's enough. Anyway, in our next video, we'll talk about when do I use present perfect with a length of time, and when do I use present perfect progressive. So, if you want to find out, watch the next video.